The scene opens in a bustling television studio, lights glowing brightly overhead as the crew scurries around making last-minute adjustments. The energy is electric, and the air buzzes with anticipation. Tonight's guest is none other than Vin Diesel, the larger-than-life Hollywood star known for his towering presence, deep voice, and unforgettable performances in blockbuster hits like Fast and Furious. But more than just an actor, Diesel has always been something of an enigma, a man who keeps his personal life tightly under wraps. Alex Carter, the charismatic host of the popular late-night talk show, stands backstage reviewing his notes. He's done countless interviews with A-list celebrities, but tonight feels different. Alex knows that Diesel rarely talks about his private life, especially topics like faith or spirituality. This makes him curious and bold enough to tackle a subject most hosts would avoid. As he flips through his cue cards, Alex smirks to himself, wondering if Diesel will open up or shut down completely. Meanwhile, in the green room, Vin Diesel sits quietly, scrolling through his phone while sipping a cup of coffee. Despite his rugged exterior, there's a calmness about him. He's dressed casually yet stylishly in a black leather jacket and jeans, exuding confidence without trying too hard. Around him, assistants chat nervously, reminding him of the timeline for the show. Diesel listens patiently, nodding occasionally, but his mind seems elsewhere. Perhaps he's thinking about the questions Alex might ask, or maybe he's mentally preparing himself for whatever comes next. Back on set, the audience begins filing into their seats, chatting excitedly as they wait for the show to start. Some hold handmade signs with messages like, "We love you, Vin," while others snap selfies in front of the stage. The atmosphere is lively, and everyone can feel that this episode is going to be special. When the house lights dim and the opening music blares, the crowd erupts into cheers. Alex strides out onto the stage, waving enthusiastically as the camera pans across the cheering faces. "Good evening, everyone." Alex greets the audience with his trademark charm. Tonight, we have a very special guest, a man who needs no introduction. Whether he's racing cars at breakneck speeds or saving the world one mission at a time, he's captured our hearts and imaginations. Please welcome the incredible Vin Diesel. The applause reaches a deafening level as Diesel appears from behind the curtain, his signature smile lighting up the room. Dressed impeccably and radiating charisma, he shakes hands with Alex before taking his seat. The two exchange pleasantries, laughing over a story about how they first met years ago at a film festival. For a moment, the conversation feels light and easy, almost like catching up with an old friend. But beneath the surface, Alex is strategizing. He knows his viewers are eager for something fresh, something unexpected. And tonight, he plans to deliver. After a few minutes of small talk about Diesel's latest projects, Alex subtly steers the conversation toward deeper waters. "You know, Vin," he says, leaning forward slightly, "one thing people often wonder about you is, well, what drives you? You've achieved so much success, but you're also famously private. Do you ever think about things like meaning, purpose, or even faith?" The question hangs in the air, soft but deliberate. Diesel pauses for a beat, his expression unreadable. Is he surprised, annoyed, or simply choosing his words carefully? Whatever it is, the audience leans in, hanging on every second. It's clear that this interview is about to take an intriguing turn, one that nobody saw coming. The energy in the studio shifts subtly as Alex's question lingers. Vin Diesel doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he leans back slightly in his chair, his hands resting on his knees, and takes a deep breath. The confident smile that had been plastered across his face moments earlier softens into something more introspective. It's clear that this isn't just another interview question. It's personal. Alex, sensing the gravity of the moment, gives Diesel space to respond. He knows better than to rush someone like Vin Diesel, a man whose reputation for thoughtful responses matches his larger-than-life persona. But Alex also can't help but feel a flicker of excitement. This is uncharted territory, and both men know it. The audience, too, seems acutely aware that they're witnessing something rare. The chatter and laughter from earlier have faded entirely. replaced by an almost tangible silence. Diesel finally breaks the pause, his deep voice cutting through the quiet. "You know, Alex," he begins slowly, his tone measured. "Faith is complicated." He pauses again, choosing his words carefully. For some people, it's about religion or rituals. For others, it's about finding meaning in everyday life. I've always believed there's no one-size-fits-all answer. His eyes scan the crowd briefly before returning to Alex, locking onto him with an intensity that makes the host sit up straighter. Alex nods, intrigued but not entirely satisfied. He presses gently, his curiosity getting the better of him. "That's interesting, but do you think avoiding labels or maybe even traditional faith makes it harder to find direction? Like, does it leave you searching for answers instead of having them?" Diesel chuckles softly, though there's no mockery in it. "I wouldn't say avoiding anything," he corrects, his voice steady but firm. "It's more about understanding who I am and where I come from. My mom raised me with strong values, sure, but she also taught me to question everything, to seek truth rather than accept things at face value." He goes on to share a little about his upbringing, revealing glimpses of his multicultural background. "Growing up, I was exposed to different cultures, religions, and ideas. Catholicism played a big role because of my mom, but so did other traditions, African American, Italian, even aspects of spirituality outside organized religion. Over time, I realized faith isn't about fitting into a box. It's about connection, to yourself, to others, to the world around you." As Diesel speaks, Alex watches the audience closely. Some people nod along, clearly moved by what they're hearing. Others look skeptical, their arms crossed or brows furrowed. Social media producers stationed backstage are already typing furiously, preparing clips for platforms like Twitter and Instagram. They know this segment has the potential to blow up online, but Alex isn't done yet. Sensing an opportunity to dig deeper, he leans forward again, his tone shifting slightly. "So let me ask this. Does that mean you don't believe in God or any higher power?" The question lands with a thud, heavier than anything else he's asked so far. Even Diesel seems taken aback, though he quickly masks it with a thoughtful expression. For a moment, the only sound in the room is the faint hum of the studio lights overhead. Diesel looks down at his hands, collecting his thoughts. When he finally raises his head, his gaze is unwavering. "Let's just say my idea of a higher power might be different from what most people expect," he says cryptically. "And honestly, Alex, I think that's okay. Faith shouldn't be about conformity. It should be about discovery." The tension in the room is palpable now. Alex glances at the teleprompter, knowing he could pivot to lighter topics, but he resists. Something tells him to keep going, to push further. Meanwhile, Diesel sits calmly, exuding patience and composure. Whatever comes next, it's clear that neither man is backing down, and the audience is hanging on every word. The studio feels like it's holding its breath. Vin Diesel's last remark, "Faith shouldn't be about conformity, it should be about discovery," lingers in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex Carter, ever the seasoned interviewer, recognizes the weight of Diesel's words but isn't ready to let the moment slip away. He tilts his head slightly, his expression a mix of curiosity and challenge. "You know, Vin," Alex begins, leaning forward in his chair, "that's a really poetic way to put it. But I have to ask, do you think avoiding traditional faith makes life harder? Like, doesn't having something concrete to believe in give people comfort? Something they can cling to when things get tough?" Diesel's eyebrows rise just a fraction, as if he's both amused and intrigued by the question. He takes a slow sip of water from the glass on the table beside him, buying himself a moment to think. The audience is utterly silent now, every eye fixed on the actor. Even the bustling crew members behind the cameras seem frozen in place, unwilling to miss a single word. "I don't see it as avoiding anything," Diesel finally responds, his deep voice steady and deliberate. "It's more about embracing complexity. Life isn't black and white, it's messy, unpredictable, beautiful, and painful all at once. And honestly, I think that's where the real growth happens. He pauses, looking directly into Alex's eyes. Comfort isn't always the goal. Sometimes it's about learning how to sit with discomfort, to wrestle with questions that don't have easy answers. Alex nods slowly, clearly processing what Diesel is saying. But he's not ready to let go of the thread just yet. Okay, fair enough. But here's the thing. When you're playing these larger-than-life characters, heroes who save the day, leaders who inspire teams, does any part of that come from your own beliefs? Or are you completely separating yourself from them? Diesel chuckles softly, a hint of amusement breaking through his otherwise serious demeanor. That's a great question, he says, leaning back in his chair again. I think there's always a piece of me in every character I play. Whether it's Dom Toretto or any other role, those stories are about connection, about finding family, loyalty, and purpose even when the odds are stacked against you. Those themes resonate with me because they're universal. They're human. He pauses, glancing briefly at the audience before continuing. But here's the key. It's not about me believing in some grand destiny for those characters. It's about believing in people, in their ability to rise above challenges, to love deeply, to fight for what matters. That's what keeps me grounded. Not religion, not dogma, but humanity. The crowd murmurs appreciatively and a few people clap instinctively before catching themselves. Alex, sensing the emotional impact of Diesel's words, shifts gears, slightly. So, would you say your faith, in whatever form it takes, is rooted in people? In relationships? Diesel nods thoughtfully. Absolutely. At the end of the day, we're all connected. Every story I tell, every person I meet reminds me of that. My mom used to say that our job as humans is to leave the world better than we found it, to lift each other up. If that's not faith, then I don't know what is. As Diesel speaks, Alex studies him closely. There's no defensiveness in his tone, no attempt to dodge the difficult parts of the conversation. Instead, Diesel seems genuinely open, almost vulnerable in a way that feels rare for someone so famously private. It's clear that this isn't rehearsed or polished, it's raw and authentic. The host leans back in his chair, visibly impressed. That's really powerful, Vin. I think a lot of people will relate to that. He flashes a quick smile, trying to lighten the mood. But let me throw one more curveball at you. Do you ever worry that some people might see your approach as too vague, too undefined? Diesel smirks, his confidence returning. Of course, he admits. But here's the thing. Faith isn't supposed to be easy. If it were, everyone would do it the same way. For me, it's about staying true to myself and encouraging others to do the same. We're all on our own journeys, Alex, and that's okay. The audience erupts into applause, unable to contain their admiration any longer. Alex grins, knowing he's struck gold with this interview. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. This conversation will be talked about long after the credits roll. The applause from the audience fades slowly, but the energy in the room remains electric. Vin Diesel sits calmly, his hands resting on his knees, exuding a quiet confidence that commands attention. Alex Carter, sensing the depth of Diesel's words, decides to dig even deeper. He knows he's onto something extraordinary, a glimpse into the mind of a man who has always kept his personal beliefs under wraps. Vin, Alex starts again, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. You mentioned staying true to yourself and encouraging others to do the same. But how do you navigate moments of doubt? You've been through some tough times, losing loved ones, facing criticism, dealing with the pressures of fame. Does your faith or your belief system help you get through those moments? Diesel doesn't answer right away. Instead, he looks down at his hands for a moment as if gathering his thoughts. When he finally speaks, his voice is softer, tinged with emotion. Doubt is part of life, he says simply. It's not something you can escape, no matter who you are or what you believe. I've had my share of dark days, days when it felt like the weight of everything was too much to bear. He pauses, glancing briefly at the audience before continuing. When I lost Paul Walker, it shook me to my core. He wasn't just a co-star, he was family. And losing him made me question everything. life, death, purpose. But in those moments of pain, I realize something important. Faith isn't about having all the answers, it's about finding strength in the questions. It's about trusting that even when you don't understand why things happen, there's still meaning to be found. Alex listens intently, nodding along as Diesel speaks. The sincerity in Diesel's voice is undeniable, and it resonates deeply with everyone in the room. A few people in the audience wipe tears from their eyes, moved by his vulnerability. Alex clears his throat gently before asking, "So, what did you find during those hard times? What kept you going?" Diesel smiles faintly, a mix of sadness and wisdom in his expression. "What kept me going was remembering what Paul stood for, the values we shared, loyalty, family, living fully in every moment. Those aren't just ideas from our movies, they're principles I try to live by. And honestly, storytelling became a kind of lifeline for me. Every character I play teaches me something new about resilience, love, and hope. Even in fiction, there's truth, and that truth connects us." He leans forward slightly, his tone becoming more passionate. "I also learned to lean on the people around me, my real-life family, my friends, my fans. They remind me why I do what I do. Faith, for me, isn't solitary. It's communal. It's about lifting each other up, especially when life gets heavy." The audience erupts into spontaneous applause again, unable to contain their admiration. Alex waits for the noise to settle before pressing further. "That's incredibly powerful, Vin. But let me ask this. Do you ever feel pressure to conform, to fit into someone else's idea of what faith should look like? Whether it's from Hollywood, your fans, or even critics?" Diesel chuckles softly, shaking his head. "Of course there's pressure, there always is. People want to put you in boxes, label you, define you. But here's the thing. I stopped caring about that a long time ago. My journey is mine alone, and I owe it to myself, and to those who look up to me, to stay authentic. If I tried to be something I'm not, I'd lose sight of everything that matters." His words hit hard, earning murmurs of agreement from the crowd. Alex nods thoughtfully, clearly impressed by Diesel's clarity. "That takes courage," he says sincerely. "A lot of people talk about being true to themselves, but actually living it? That's rare." Diesel shrugs modestly, though there's a hint of pride in his smile. Courage isn't about never feeling afraid. It's about moving forward. Anyway. And yeah, sometimes it's scary to stand apart, but at the end of the day, I'd rather be honest than accepted for something I'm not. As the segment draws to a close, Alex thanks Diesel for sharing such personal insights. The actor nods graciously, his demeanor calm yet commanding. The audience cheers once more, many rising to their feet in a standing ovation. For a moment, the entire studio feels united, not just by admiration for Vin Diesel, but by the universal truths he's articulated so eloquently. Everyone leaves the conversation with something to reflect on, including Alex himself, who realizes he's just witnessed something truly unforgettable. The conversation takes a philosophical turn as Alex Carter leans back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. The studio lights reflect off his glasses as he processes Vin Diesel's previous responses. He knows they're delving into territory that transcends the typical late-night interview, and he doesn't want to let the moment slip away. "Vin," Alex begins, his tone softer now, almost reflective. "You've talked about storytelling being a lifeline for you, a way to connect with others and find meaning. But how do you balance that? I mean, your characters are often these larger-than-life heroes who seem almost untouchable. How do you bring humanity into roles like that without losing yourself?" Diesel smiles faintly, his gaze steady. "That's the magic of storytelling, Alex," he says. "Even the biggest heroes, the toughest, strongest, most fearless ones, they're still human at their core. Take Dom Toretto, for example. On the surface, he's this action star, this guy who can drive a car through impossible stunts or take down an entire gang single-handedly. But underneath all that, he's driven by love for his family, for his friends, for doing what's right. That's what makes him relatable." He pauses, gesturing with his hands as if painting a picture. "When I step into those roles, I don't see them as separate from me. I see them as extensions of who I am, or who I could be under different circumstances. Each character teaches me something new about life, about resilience, about relationships, and when people watch those stories, they see parts of themselves too. That's the power of connection. Alex nods, clearly captivated. So, would you say that storytelling has shaped your idea of faith? Or maybe even reinforced it? Diesel tilts his head slightly, considering the question. Absolutely, he replies after a moment. Stories remind us that we're not alone. They show us that no matter where we come from or what we believe, we all share the same hopes, fears, and dreams. Faith to me is about recognizing that connection, not just between people, but between everything, between past and present, pain and joy, loss and love. The audience listens intently, many nodding along as if Diesel's words resonate on a deeply personal level. Alex, sensing the emotional weight of the moment, decides to push further. But here's the thing, he says, leaning forward again. For a lot of people, faith is tied to religion, prayer, rituals, scripture. Do you ever feel like your approach might alienate those who hold more traditional beliefs? Diesel chuckles softly, his smile warm but firm. I think faith means something different to everyone, he explains. For some, it's about going to church or following religious teachings. For others, it's about meditation, nature, or even science. There's no one right way to believe. What matters is that it gives you purpose, that it helps you navigate life with integrity and compassion. He pauses, looking directly at Alex before continuing. And honestly, I think my approach isn't about rejecting tradition. It's about embracing diversity. I respect anyone who finds peace in their beliefs, whether they align with mine or not. We're all searching for the same thing: truth, meaning, connection. If anything, I hope sharing my perspective encourages people to explore their own paths instead of feeling boxed in. The sincerity in Diesel's voice is palpable, and the audience reacts with murmurs of agreement. A few people clap quietly, while others sit silently, absorbing every word. Alex, visibly moved by the depth of Diesel's response, takes a moment to gather his thoughts. You know, Vin, he says finally, his tone lighter but still earnest. A lot of celebrities shy away from talking about topics like this. It's risky. It opens you up to criticism, misunderstanding, maybe even backlash. Why do you think it's important to have conversations like this, even if they make people uncomfortable? Diesel leans forward, his expression serious but kind. Because discomfort is where growth happens, he says simply. If we only stick to safe, easy conversations, we never challenge ourselves, or each other, to think differently, to evolve. And look, I'm not trying to convince anyone to agree with me. All I want is to spark dialogue, to remind people that it's okay to ask questions, to seek answers, to be uncertain sometimes. That's how we learn. As Diesel finishes speaking, the audience erupts into applause once more, louder and more heartfelt than before. Alex grins, shaking his head in admiration. Well said, Vin. Honestly, I think a lot of people needed to hear that tonight. Diesel smiles humbly, thanking the crowd with a small wave. The energy in the room feels electric, charged with a sense of shared understanding and reflection. Everyone knows they've witnessed something special. A rare glimpse into the mind of a man whose strength lies not just in his physical presence, but in his ability to inspire through honesty and vulnerability. The applause slowly fades, but the intensity in the room remains. Alex Carter shifts slightly in his chair, sensing that this conversation has taken on a life of its own. He knows he's treading delicate ground now, but he can't resist pushing just a little further. After all, moments like these are what make interviews unforgettable. Vin, Alex begins, his tone shifting to something more probing. You've talked about faith being personal and diverse, about finding your own path instead of following someone else's rules. But here's the thing. Some people might argue that without structure, without traditions or rituals, you risk losing direction. Doesn't having a clear framework help keep you grounded? Diesel doesn't flinch. Instead, he leans forward, resting his forearms on his knees, his gaze unwavering. I get why people think that, he says calmly. Structure can provide comfort, stability. It gives you something tangible to hold on to when life gets chaotic. And there's value in that. But for me, grounding comes from within. It's not about external frameworks, it's about internal clarity. He pauses, choosing his words carefully. Think about it this way. If you rely solely on tradition or dogma, what happens when those things don't align with who you are? You either suppress yourself to fit in, or you feel lost because you've built your foundation on something that doesn't truly resonate with you. I'd rather build my foundation on authenticity, even if it means sitting with discomfort. Sometimes. Alex nods, clearly intrigued but still unsatisfied. He presses gently, his voice carrying a hint of skepticism. But isn't there merit in surrendering to something greater than yourself? Like trusting in a higher power or divine plan? Doesn't that take some of the pressure off, knowing you're not alone in figuring everything out? Diesel chuckles softly, his expression thoughtful. It's funny you say that, he replies, because I do believe in something greater than myself. It's just not what most people expect. To me, the greater isn't a single entity or force. It's humanity as a whole. It's the collective strength we find in each other, the resilience we show when we come together. That's where the real power lies. He gestures toward the audience, his deep voice resonant with conviction. Look around you. Every person here has their own struggles, their own dreams, their own version of faith. But we're all connected by our shared humanity. When I talk about trust, it's not about putting my faith in one specific thing. It's about believing in us, in our ability to rise above challenges, to love fiercely, to create beauty even in the face of pain. The crowd erupts into murmurs of approval, some nodding vigorously while others exchange glances, clearly moved. Alex, however, isn't ready to let Diesel off the hook just yet. He leans back in his chair, crossing his arms loosely. That's inspiring, no doubt, he says, his tone light but pointed. But doesn't that sound a little idealistic? Life isn't always beautiful. Sometimes it's ugly, unfair, heartbreaking. How do you reconcile that with this idea of collective strength and connection? Diesel meets Alex's gaze head-on, his composure unshaken. You're absolutely right, he admits. Life is messy, painful, unfair. But here's the thing. Faith isn't about denying reality. It's about finding hope within it. Even in the darkest moments, there's light, if you're willing to look for it. And often that light comes from other people. From acts of kindness, from shared laughter, from standing shoulder to shoulder when times are tough. His words hang in the air, heavy with meaning. For a moment, the only sounds are the faint hum of the studio lights and the occasional shuffle of papers from the crew backstage. The audience seems spellbound, hanging on every syllable. Alex breaks the silence with a small smile, shaking his head in admiration. You know, Vin, I came into this interview thinking I'd challenge you, to push you out of your comfort zone. But honestly, I think you've turned the tables on me. You're making me rethink my own beliefs. Diesel grins, his trademark warmth returning. That's the goal, isn't it? He says lightly. Not to change anyone's mind, but to spark reflection. To encourage people to ask questions and seek their own answers. Faith at its core is about growth, about becoming better versions of ourselves, not just for our sake, but for the sake of everyone around us. As the segment nears its end, Alex thanks Diesel once again, visibly impressed by the depth and sincerity of his responses. The actor nods graciously, his calm demeanor masking the emotional weight of the conversation they've. As the interview winds down, the energy in the studio remains electric. Alex Carter leans back in his chair, visibly processing everything Vin Diesel has shared. The actor sits calmly, his hands clasped loosely in his lap, exuding a quiet confidence that fills the room. The audience, still buzzing from Diesel's profound insights, seems reluctant to let the moment end. Well, Vin, Alex says finally, his tone warm but reflective. This has been unlike any interview I've ever done. You've given us so much to think about tonight, about faith, connection, and what it means to live authentically. Honestly, I feel like we could keep talking for hours. Diesel chuckles softly, his deep voice carrying a note of gratitude. Thanks, Alex. That means a lot coming from you. And honestly, these kinds of conversations are important, not just for me, but for everyone listening. If even one person walks away feeling inspired to reflect on their own beliefs or connect more deeply with others, then it's worth it. The audience erupts into applause again, many standing to show their appreciation. Some hold up phones, capturing the final moments of the exchange, while others simply sit in silence, absorbing the weight of Diesel's words. Social media is already ablaze with reactions as clips of the interview begin circulating online. Hashtags like Vin Diesel faith and authenticity, over conformity start trending within minutes, sparking debates and heartfelt reflections across platforms. Alex takes advantage of the lull to lighten the mood slightly. All right, before we wrap this up, let me ask one last question, something lighter this time. After all, you're known for playing tough guys who save the world. So what's something people would be surprised to know about you? Something maybe they wouldn't expect? Diesel smirks, clearly enjoying the shift in tone. Good question, he muses, stroking his chin dramatically. I guess people might be surprised to know how much I love poetry. Yeah, seriously. I'm a big fan of writers like Maya Angelou and Langston Hughes. Their work speaks to the soul in ways that movies sometimes can't. There's something raw and real about poetry that resonates with me. The audience laughs warmly, charmed by the unexpected revelation. Alex grins, nodding enthusiastically. Poetry, who would have guessed? Maybe next time you'll read one of your favorites on the show. Maybe, Diesel replies with a wink, eliciting another round of laughter. Despite the levity, there's an underlying sense that this moment, the mix of vulnerability and humor, is exactly what makes him such a compelling figure. With that, Alex wraps up the segment, thanking Diesel profusely for joining him and sharing such personal thoughts. You've truly given us all something to think about tonight, he says sincerely, and I have no doubt this conversation will stick with people long after the credits roll. Diesel stands, shaking Alex's hand firmly before turning to face the audience. He raises a hand in gratitude, his expression soft but powerful. Thank you all for listening, he says, his voice resonating through the studio. Remember, life is about connection, about lifting each other up, finding meaning in the chaos and staying true to who you are. Keep asking questions, keep seeking truth, and most importantly, keep believing in each other. The crowd erupts into thunderous applause once more, many cheering and whistling as Diesel exits the stage. Backstage, the crew exchanges glances, knowing they've just witnessed something extraordinary. Meanwhile, Alex returns to his seat, visibly moved by the experience. As the show cuts to commercial break, he turns to the camera with a smile. That was Vin Diesel, everyone. A man who proves that strength isn't just physical, it's emotional, intellectual, and spiritual too. We'll be right back after this short break. In the days that follow, the interview becomes a cultural moment. Clips go viral, sparking discussions everywhere, from late-night talk shows to social media threads to dinner table conversations. Critics praise Diesel for his courage and authenticity, while fans express admiration for his willingness to tackle such a sensitive topic. Even Alex receives widespread acclaim for facilitating a dialogue that felt both challenging and respectful. For Diesel, the response is overwhelming, but not entirely unexpected. In a brief statement released later, he thanks viewers for engaging with his perspective and encourages them to continue exploring their own beliefs without fear of judgment. Faith isn't a destination, he writes, it's a journey, and every step matters. As the dust settles, one thing is clear. This wasn't just another celebrity interview. It was a reminder of the power of storytelling, vulnerability, and human connection, and it left an indelible mark on everyone who watched. The days following the interview feel like a whirlwind. Vin Diesel's appearance on Alex Carter's show becomes the talk of the town, sparking conversations that ripple far beyond the confines of the television studio. Social media platforms are flooded with reactions, some praising Diesel's candor, others debating his views on faith, and many sharing how his words resonated deeply with their own lives. Clips from the interview are played repeatedly online, each snippet capturing a different facet of Diesel's wisdom, his belief in humanity, his rejection of rigid dogma, and his call for authenticity. Diesel himself takes to Instagram a few days later, posting a reflective message alongside a black and white photo of him sitting quietly by a window. Faith isn't about finding all the answers. It's about embracing the questions, he writes. Thank you to everyone who watched, listened, and joined the conversation. Let's keep exploring, growing, and connecting. That's where the real magic happens. The post garners millions of likes within hours, with fans leaving heartfelt comments beneath it. One user writes, "Your words reminded me that it's okay to be uncertain as long as I stay true to myself." Another adds, "You didn't just talk about faith. You inspired me to believe in people again." Even celebrities chime in, with actors, musicians, and athletes expressing admiration for Diesel's courage and insight. Meanwhile, Alex Carter finds himself reflecting on the impact of the interview too. It wasn't just another episode of his show, it was a turning point. For weeks afterward, viewers sent emails and messages thanking him for creating space for such a meaningful dialogue. Critics praise him for handling the topic with sensitivity, noting how he balanced challenging questions with genuine curiosity. In an interview with a popular entertainment magazine, Alex admits, "I went into that night thinking I'd push Vin out of his comfort zone. Instead, he pushed me, and probably everyone watching, to think differently about faith, connection, and what it means to live authentically." Back at the studio, the team behind the scenes can't stop talking about the interview either. Producers joke that they should frame the footage and hang it in the office as a reminder of what great television looks like. Editors recount how the raw emotion in Diesel's voice made cutting the clips both thrilling and nerve-wracking. They wanted to preserve every second without overproducing the moment. Even the crew members, who rarely interact directly with guests, admit they were moved, saying things like, "It felt less like an interview and more like a shared experience." As the buzz continues, Diesel returns to work, filming scenes for the next installment of Fast and Furious. On set, his co-stars tease him good-naturedly about becoming a philosopher king, but there's undeniable respect in their tone. They've always known Diesel as a man of depth, but this interview reveals just how much he carries those values into everything he does. During breaks between takes, conversations often drift back to topics like purpose, resilience, and the power of storytelling. Themes Diesel has clearly embedded into the fabric of the franchise itself. For audiences, the effects linger even longer. Faith groups across the country incorporate Diesel's remarks into sermons and discussions, using them as a springboard to explore modern interpretations of spirituality. Schools invite students to write essays reflecting on his ideas about connection and authenticity. Even casual viewers find themselves revisiting moments from the interview during quiet evenings, pondering how his perspective aligns or challenges their own beliefs. Months later, when Alex invites Diesel back onto the show to promote another project, the two men laugh about how much attention that single conversation generated. "I still get tweets daily quoting me," Diesel jokes, shaking his head. "People won't let me live it down." But beneath the humor lies gratitude for the platform, the audience, and the opportunity to share something so personal. By the time the segment ends, it's clear that the legacy of that night will endure. Diesel's reflections on faith may not have changed the world overnight, but they planted seeds of thought in countless minds. Seeds that continue to grow, inspiring people to ask harder questions, seek deeper connections, and embrace the beauty of uncertainty. And perhaps that's the greatest testament to his message. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting the journey, one step at a time.